Class 3 tonight, which is third class in the Taming the FamilySearch Goliath series that is being offered by West Richland Stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These classes are intended to help family history researchers become more comfortable in using FamilySearch so that their efforts will be rewarded by success and they won't have to struggle with problems that they don't know how to cope with when they're using that software and database. Tonight we're talking about an extremely important topic that many people overlook. And it is becoming more complicated because people are coming into the FamilySearch database from so many different backgrounds. And in each of those different backgrounds, whether it was a previous database or a previous church software program or a commercial software program, they had rules for how you entered data, and we're all creatures of habit. We've become used to entering our data in a certain way. FamilySearch also requires a specific format, and many people are not aware of this and are not converting to that format. In Class 2, our previous class, we covered getting a username and password to FamilyTree. We completed an orientation to the person page, and we talked about the process of connecting your closest deceased ancestors to existing data already in FamilyTree. If you did not have a chance to attend that class and are interested in any of those topics, we urge you to download Class 2 from the website that will be on the last slide of our presentation tonight. In this class, we're going to talk about these specific things. By the end of this class, we want you to feel comfortable adding a new person to the database, which of course includes adding a name with their nickname and possible spelling variations, adding a real or approximate date, and adding a definite or best guess location. And we're going to tell you why we recommend that you always do that, even when you're not actually sure of that information. These data entry standards that FamilySearch is requesting of us are important for a couple of very valid reasons. One is that incorrectly entered data results in duplicate people in the database. Here we have Robert under one ID number and Robert Garrett under another ID number. Someone didn't bother to put in his last name, perhaps didn't realize they were supposed to do that because after all it's under his father whose surname is Garrett. And so we have two people who are apparently identical in the database and need to be merged. In this same family, which is a real family, we have a Joseph and a Joseph Garrett, and we have a child named Garrett and another child named Garrett who may or may not be duplicates. We can't even tell yet. Now those possible duplicate people in FamilySearch cause a problem because they create a new branch in the FamilySearch tree, and people who find that individual and start building on it then add spouses and children to that duplicate person. And before you know it, we've got a whole different branch of the tree going off, adding new people, and the longer it exists, the more people we have to collapse and merge. And there's a third reason why it's so important to put in our information consistently using the format that FamilySearch has developed, and that is family ordinances, because for each time that that individual exists in the database, it is possible that their ordinances are being completed. In this case, Robert exists 3 times, and sure enough, it's offering us the chance to do his ordinances again, even though they have been completed twice before. So let's talk about the correct way to add data to FamilySearch FamilyTree. FamilySearch is the umbrella database. FamilyTree is the family tree part where we enter the data about our personal family. As you're aware, in the vital information section of the person page, it offers us the opportunity to see the individual's name as it was entered by the person who put that person in the database. And it gives us an opportunity to put in a title, a first and middle name, perhaps more middle names if the person had many, a last name, and a suffix. Many people believe that it's important to put in Junior if this was the son of a man who had the very same name and the son is being given the honor of being named after his parent. Many people also feel that in that instance they should put the word SR or senior in the father's suffix box, and that of course is incorrect because that child was not given the name. In this case it's a female, so this doesn't make any sense, but let's say George Ishmael Sr. No child is named Senior at birth. And the name that we put in the vital information section on the person page is the name the child was given at birth, which means that a woman always has her maiden surname in the vital information section at the top of her person page. It remains that way throughout her life, no matter how many times she is married or how many times she changes her name. This might be of use to some of you who run into situations in your family history where an infant or a child died before the age of 8 and you haven't been able to discover their name. You can type in the words infant daughter or infant son in this title section and the surname of the parent to indicate this is an infant daughter of these parents whose first name I have not yet learned.
So you're talking about some that we have not learned.
I will discuss that with you. When you look at the person page, and we are going to do that in just a minute, I'm not going to keep you reliant on these slides. I just need to give you some basic information before we go there. In FamilySearch itself, on the person's page, you're going to find that there's a section at the top that is their vital information. That's where they have their name and their birth date and location and their death date and location and burial location. And just beneath that section is a section called Other Information. And Other Information is where we can add nicknames. Many people put the nickname up here, and that is a surefire way to create duplicates in the database. I'd like to share with you an example. I couldn't sign into this earlier because it would have timed me out. I'm sorry for making you wait for that. Excuse me. Okay, let's go find Clara. See if the database is finding people by their ID numbers tonight. It's been kind of on and off the last few days. Nope, it doesn't want to do that. So let me show you a different way to go to a person's ID number. If you come right up here to the left of the Find button, this little down arrow by the person page, it's kind of a fallback way to go to the ID number. The very first thing on the top is Go To, gives you a chance to put in an ID number. This is also the only place I have become aware of where you can add a person who's not connected to anyone in the database. Okay, so let's come back up here. I'm going to click the little arrow that means Advance, and that takes me to her person page. Okay, I've been telling you that in the person page there was a section at the top for vital information. That's the one where we do not put her nickname. And just beneath that is a little section called Other Information. Right now this is collapsed. If I want to expand it, I simply click the little arrow which opens that section for me. Lots of times that section will get fairly large as records are added to it when they are attached to the person page. And so people tend to collapse that Other Information section. If you can't open it, just click that little arrow right there. Okay, so if we wanted to fix this person page, we would click Add an alternate name, and see how it gives me a chance to be more specific about the alternate name. This is a nickname as opposed to a married name. This is a nickname. Her nickname was Chloe. I'm just looking up at the top to get this, C-H-L-O-E, Anderson. It's important to put the last name. The reason we want to spell that all out is any names that are in the other information section of the person page are searchable by FamilySearch when it goes to look for records. So it will be able to find this same woman under the name Clara Anderson, or under the name Chloe Anderson, or under the name Clara Smith, because it knows that if she marries him, chances are we'll find records under his surname. So I'm going to save that nickname, and I'm going to close the little box I opened to edit the information and come back up here. Do not be reluctant to do this in people's person pages. You are doing them a service. Let me show you the message I usually type in here. Moved the nickname to the other information section of the person page where it helps us find duplicate people and records, period. So even though two people are watching this family tree, and a lot of people say, well, if somebody's watching this, maybe I shouldn't be messing with it. Yes, you should. You're doing them a service by helping to avoid duplicate people in the database for this individual. Now there's one thing I didn't do yet. I didn't take out her nickname. Let's go back in and edit. Take out her nickname, which should never have been there in the first place. Try that again. People who put nicknames, I don't have to put a reason why I did that. I've just typed it in. People who put nicknames in the vital information section tend to do it more than once. In her family, she's got a daughter named Frances. Do you see the space between this parenthesis mark and the first letter of her nickname? That space, I would have to duplicate this name exactly as it is typed, including that space, for FamilySearch to be able to recognize that this person exists in the database. That's how specific this search engine is. That's why if I had typed Frances, quote mark, Fanny, quote mark, Smith, the database would not realize that she already existed here. I would have to have typed it precisely as this lady typed it in to be able to find her. So let's fix this one too. And in fact, your homework assignment for this class is going to be to search the people that are connected to you in any way in the database and move nicknames to the other information section of the page. Is her nickname Fanny? Look, someone has indicated here at one time that her birth name was Fanny Smith, which is also not correct. But we can utilize that entry and simply convert it to a nickname, because who knows if her nickname was spelled Fanny, F-A-N-N-Y, or F-A-N-N-I-E. Let's put it both ways. Add a nickname, also known as nickname Fanny Smith. Now it's in there both ways, so FamilySearch can find her by either of those spellings. And someone has put her in with the name Frances Pugh with an alternate spelling of her married name, because they have found that name in a record. That's a very good use of the other information section, to put in every alternate spelling of the name that you discover in records so that FamilySearch will be able to lead someone. I've actually had FamilySearch keep bringing me back to a person page, and I said, that is not the person I'm looking for. Why was FamilySearch continuing to bring me back to this person page? And it's because down here someone had said that that person was also known as the name I'm searching for. Sometimes if two people have been merged together incorrectly, perhaps, that is an error. And so you want to be sure that if you are required to separate two people who have been incorrectly merged, you eliminate that duplicate name from this other information section. Let's say that this person was believed to have been Fanny Smythe at one time. I would need to make sure that that name was removed from the other information section, or FamilySearch will bring someone to this page when they go to enter that individual. Now, what do I have to do up here before I leave this? I need to take out Fanny, don't I? So we'll simply delete that with a clear conscience, and we'll type in here, anybody got an idea what message? Moved nickname to other information to help us find duplicates and records. So it's clear to anyone who looks at this person page what you have done and why. This is the teaching process to help them learn that nicknames do not belong here, and is a good way for them to get that message. They've got some warning messages here. This child was born before the mother was born. We have more problems than we have reviewed in this instance. We'll have to hope that someone comes back and sees that this child born in 1748 was the daughter of a mother who would have been 13 years old. It's not my family. It's not my responsibility to help them solve these problems. What I can do is help them avoid duplicate people. So we've talked about the fact that adding a woman's married name in the other information section is helpful. It's not essential because FamilySearch will assume that, but if you're looking for death and burial records where the woman might have been named her married surname, it can be a help to FamilySearch in locating those records for you. Often, burial records are in the married name of the woman. We also want to watch for alternate spellings that we find in records, as we find census records and birth, marriage, and death records. Watch for the spelling so that we learn the different ways people might have heard that and written it down, which will help FamilySearch recognize duplicate people. Our goal in doing that is very simple. When someone says, oh, my person doesn't exist yet in the database, this is what I know about them, which may not be complete, of course. They put in that individual, and we want FamilySearch to be smart enough to take them directly to our person page for that individual, instead of letting them create them again. So now let's review a few challenging names ourselves by way of practice. I've given you a sheet in your slides. If you have our handouts, and I encourage you to get those if you're viewing this class online, I encourage you to look at your slides. Let's practice some of these. I'm going to come up here once again to that down arrow beside the word person, and I'm going to go to the bottom of the list of people I've been working on recently. Oh, you can't see everything. Let me slide down a little bit. And I'm going to add an unconnected person. This is a place for us to practice. We won't be saving these changes, so we can play around all we want. Okay, my dad's name, this is a true statement. My dad's name was Harry Jr. Hansen, and he was called Jr. as a child. How do we enter his name in these 4 cells? Harry.
He was not given a birth name.
The question is, it was not a good given at birth name. It was a given at birth name. And that's what I'm trying to point out by this example, aren't I? It was literally his middle name, Junior. He was called that, but that was not a suffix. He was not Harry Emanuel Hansen, his dad's name, with Junior tacked on the end. His name was really Harry Junior Hansen. My point in giving you this example is simply to tell you Junior is not always a suffix. It's a pretty unusual example, I will grant you. Okay, let's try the next one. Let's see how we do with this one. Ezekiel Morgan Wilson, known to his friends as Zeke. Let's try it. Ezekiel Morgan, last name box, Wilson. We're going to say that he was a male. We're going to say that he is deceased, and we're going to add him because we need a person page to complete this example. We're going to create him. He's a fictitious person. I will delete when we're finished. Now I have access to his other information box, and this is where I'm going to put his nickname. I'm going to say add an alternate name. The alternate name happens to have been a nickname. His nickname was Zeke, and his last name was Wilson, even when he was using a nickname. Save. So this is how I correctly add that example. Ezekiel Morgan Wilson with a nickname Zeke Wilson. Okay. Now let's use this same person page and just modify it for our next examples. My father-in-law's name was Emmett Devine. I need to click on this and edit it and blank it out so we can have it fresh. His name was Emmett Devine. And he went sometimes by the spelling Devine. Save. Actually, that's a falsification. I should have switched this around. His name was actually Devine by birth, and when he and his wife got married, she said, there is no way I'm going to be married to a man who claims to be divine. Therefore, as of today, you are changing this name to D-E-V. So Emmett, D-E-V-I-N-E. Save. And this one should have been his birth name, which only because this is a real example would I know that. Devine. Okay, now I've got two boxes open here. I've got this one open, and I've got this one open. And I can come up here and say close details and close them both simultaneously, but it's kind of important that we close those before we leave this person page. Okay, now what do we do when we've got an infant daughter? We've covered this already in our presentation, but let's just reinforce it. It's not Emmett Devine who's got a daughter. Let's take him out of here. Infant daughter of John and Mary Jensen, who died as a baby. What are we going to do with this baby? How are we going to put her in here? We don't know her first name, right? Over here in the title section, not in the first name section, in the title section, let's put infant daughter. And she, if had we known her name, it would have been her father's name, which was Jensen. Save it. Close the box. Infant daughter Jensen. It makes me really uncomfortable to see a child in a family just named Jensen. I saw a child in a family recently that said, I want to say dead on delivery. I just broke my heart for that mother. I thought that's so cold and so callous. Let's change that, and I did. Okay, so we've got that one. If you put that same information right here, FamilySearch will tell you you cannot add that person by that name. All right, let's take her out of here. Remove Jensen. Melissa Marie Hendricks, whose gravestone reads Melissa Marie Larison. What does that probably tell us?
Married.
Probably married. We're going to delete this so that we're going to make her take that off. So let's put in her, which of the surnames should we put in?
If it's on a gravestone, most likely Hendricks is her birth name, and Larison would be her married name.
So the suggestion is that Hendricks is probably her birth name and Larison is probably her married name. And which name belongs in her vital information section? Her birth name. She stays with her birth name throughout life. That does not change. So Hendricks. I've also run into situations, of course, where a child was adopted by a stepfather, let's say, and assumed the name of that stepfather. Perhaps they went their whole life by that surname because it was so common in those earlier days for children to automatically assume the surname of their stepfather. In that case, I would put the stepfather's name here under other information so that this child would be findable in the records and as a person in the database by either name. Okay, what are we going to do with this swell new information we have that she married somebody named Mr. Larison? Why don't we come down here and use that as a clue? Oh, she's a, oops, I still got her as my original male. Let's make her a girl, which I can only do because I am the one who created her and no ordinances have been completed. Now we've got a place to put in a spouse. This might be the first clue we've ever had of who this woman married. So let's say Mr., because I don't know his first name yet, Mr. Larison. He was a male, he is deceased. Now I could estimate his date of birth based on her date of birth, but in this example I won't take the time to do that. I would certainly encourage you to do that, however, because it will help FamilySearch find records that might include these two people. All right, in our next example, I just need to come up here and remove Melissa Marie to give us a blank screen. And our person in example number 6 is Megan Grace Masters, who married and later divorced Jens Jonassen. The only difference between this example really and the previous example is the factor of divorce. And all that divorce does for us, let's put her name in, Grace Masters, oops, sorry, Grace Masters. Save. Close the editing box, come down here, add a spouse, Mr. Oh, I've got a name, Jens Jonassen. So I'm creating another person. Next. The database is going to search for him in the database. Since I'm making him up, it's not going to find a duplicate for him. I'm going to add a marriage. I would add a marriage, and I would add a separate event, which was a divorce. That's the only difference between this one and the previous example. Oh, went directly to the changes. I've never seen it do that before. Okay, we've just got 2 more examples. Let's see if we can learn something from these. We've got John Jefferson's wife, Patience, whose maiden surname we haven't yet discovered. What are we going to do with Patience? John Jefferson's wife, Patience.
You put a Mrs.
Yes, yes. The suggestion from the audience is we could add Mrs. here, so we would call her Mrs. Patience Jefferson. And I would in fact recommend that you do that if you were preparing a temple card to take to the temple. But for purposes of finding records and for purposes of finding duplicates in the database, that Jefferson surname is going to throw the database off. So for the time being, until I'm ready to print out a temple card, I would simply call her Patience. And I would give her a husband who is John Jefferson. So now the database will be able to find her as Patience Jefferson, but it doesn't know a surname to check by, which is just fine with me. That way the database can be looking for a person named John Jefferson who's already in the database who has a wife named Patience. If I had made her Patience Jefferson, it would have disqualified any woman whose name was not Jefferson, and I don't want it to do that. That's why I've handled it that way. Okay. So what's our last example? Oh, I saved the best for last. This is Mrs. Jenny Kitchell, which assumes that she has been married before and is perhaps a widow, who is now marrying Jason Smith. Okay. So this is, it's important to say Mrs. in this instance, because although we know the surname she was going by in that marriage record, which we want FamilySearch to find for us, that was not her maiden name, was it? We want to make that very clear by the use of the word Mrs. We will save that. Delete her. We'll have to delete Patience before we can do that, because it won't let a woman be added to another woman's couple relationship. Did it allow me to do that? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said my error. My error is magic words. That tells search, I screwed up, I'm fixing it, don't be concerned. And in order to get back to her husband, or her wife, I guess it is, we need to come to here. What is this lady's name? Mrs. Jenny Kitchell? Well, the problem, I'm not seeing it, is that she's clear up here someplace. I think maybe a little bit tricky to get to her. See if we've still got Jens Jonason in here. Yeah, here's Mrs. Jenny Kitchell. We created her. Now we need to add her spouse. The problem is, see, I've still got her as a lady, and I need her to be a man. I need her to be a female. Female. Now she's going to her proper place in the spousal relationship, and we'll go ahead and add her husband that she's marrying now, Smith. And what else have I learned here? Next.
The first husband died.
Yes, the first husband is important, isn't he? Let's give Mrs. Jenny Kitchell a previous husband named Mr. Kitchell. How do we do that? We come up to add a spouse. I need to be on the person page of Mrs. Jenny Kitchell, to give her another husband. Her name is black and bolded, and that tells me right away that that's the person page I'm on. I go to add a spouse, add Mr. Kitchell. So in that information, however scant it was, I've come up with a couple of important facts. First, his new wife was named Jenny, and she had been previously married to a Mr. Kitchell. I'll just cancel that. Then I don't have that person to delete. Let's go to him. Just want to be sure and clean this up. I don't want you guys to come back and think, oh my gosh, I bet that's that fake person that Carol put in during this class. My error. Delete. And we'll see if we can find Jenny. Yes, there she is. Delete person. Right. So as you can see, the name that you entered is most useful when it's entered according to the guidelines that Family Tree has developed. And often the name that we have gives us more information than we would imagine when we first start out, if it helps us discover another spouse that we didn't previously have. Excuse me. You might have seen warning messages in the upper right-hand corner of your person pages that say something about standardizing. Birth date is not standardized. Birth location is not standardized. Marriage is not standardized. And I'm hoping that by the end of this class you will fully understand what that means and how simple it is to correct that problem. FamilySearch is a database where it tries to match what you are entering with what it already has on a list. That's all it means. So when we enter the date 18 Feb 1864, it immediately gives us a little list at the bottom of that information that shows the words 18 February 1864, and it's essentially saying, do you mean? And if I click on those words, the line just beneath them becomes green and it says standard 18 February 1864. It only wants the date 18 February 1864 in its database once for all the times it will be used. That's all we're trying to accomplish here. When this line turns green instead of yellow, you have done it. That's the bottom line. Green means you're fine, go ahead. Now we talked at the beginning of our class about the importance of adding partial or best guess dates. Partial or best guess dates help FamilySearch find us records. So possible real dates that we might have might not include the day, but perhaps we can say it was February 1864. Or perhaps we can say it was 1864. That's better than leaving it blank. So if you don't know the whole date, don't hesitate to put in the part that you do know. And if you're still not sure about that, but your best guess is that it was about 1864, or it was before 1864, or it was after 1864, all those three words are recognizable by FamilySearch. About 1864, not circa 1864, not brackets around 1864, about 1864. About 1864 is what FamilySearch will standardize for you. Let's enter some dates. This is another part of your homework assignment. If you choose to accept my challenge, you will go to FamilySearch in the next week and find some people whose dates have been entered incorrectly or have not been standardized, and simply standardize them, whether for your own people or for other people. Anytime we standardize a date, we are helping to discover duplicate people in the database. So let's practice entering some dates. Instead of working up here now, we're working down here. Born May 13, 1937. Do you know how many different ways there are to type out May 13, 1937? I bet you I could come up with 9 just like this, and I've seen them all in the database. 0513, 1939. 13 May 1939. 1937-05-13. And every single one of those makes it more difficult for the database to find us a duplicate. Let's learn how to do it right. This is the way FamilySearch is intended to be entered. 13 May, with a space between 13 and May, 1937. Wow, that was tough. Here is, come on, sweetheart. But it's not going to give me the standardizing menu. No, they're not going to offer me that, is it? There it is. Doesn't stay up very long. You got to catch it. If you click on that, now part of the problem is I'm adding a person here, and adding a person is much faster and less forgiving than when you're in the person page. So when you're adding a person, if you're not able to standardize it before that standardizing opportunity goes away, don't despair. Just go ahead and add the information. Let me put in Sarah, who is a female and is deceased. And what else do they want? Next, let's get to the person page because that's much more forgiving. Gives you a lot more time. Yes, we're going to add Sarah as a real person here. Okay, now we'll have a little more time to work with this. If I want to put that date in, I'm going to change it to 1936 because I want you to see this process really clearly. We're going to click on the date that matches what we intend to type right beneath it. And that means for long dates, you know, if you're not really a fast typist or you just prefer not to type out November every time, if you just type NOV, the database will read it and will be able to offer you the date that is completely typed out. So you'll save all those keystrokes. Notice that this line has now turned green. That means FamilySearch understands what you're trying to add. That's where we're trying to get to. Now in this case, let's save that. This person died, close. This person died. I don't know the date. I just know October. So we'll just put in October. Will FamilySearch standardize that? Yes, it will. October, turned green, database recognizes it. Yeah, that's because I put the date in and didn't take it out again. Okay, so let's say this next example says, born about 2 years before Grandpa died in 1974. I'm trying to put the birth date in of the child. When was she born? She was born about 1972, which is 2 years before 1974. If I put that in, the word about tells the world I'm doing my best to guess correctly, but this is a guess. If I had just put in 1972, the database would be less likely to find a record around that year than it will be this way. When married, the first child was born in 1836. This is not always the case, of course, but as a general rule, the first child is born about a year after the couple married. So if I found that they had been married in 1836, I could say about 1835. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. No wonder I've stumped you here. Excuse me. Let me come down to the marriage section. That's what's wrong. You're confused because I didn't do my job. Jim, I don't know if I can. to see next. Okay. So if they had a child down here who was born in 1836, you often find family pages where they've got a long list of children with birth dates, but they don't have a marriage date because they haven't found a marriage record. And people don't realize that putting in an estimated marriage date will help FamilySearch find the marriage record they're looking for. If they leave that blank, FamilySearch might be looking 100, 200 years difference from where they ought to be looking. So let's say instead, same principle applies here. Whoops, don't know what I just did there. Here we go. Add a marriage, about 1835. Standardize it. Very same thing in the marriage section as in the person page, except, of course, that you have to save it at the bottom, which I did not manage to accomplish. Missy died, got a typo there, sorry. Missy died before her dad's will was written in 1871. Her dad's will was written in 1871. So she died before, remember we said there are 3 magic words, before, about, and after. So we're saying before 1871. Oops, 1871. FamilySearch standardized that. That means now FamilySearch is saying, okay, anytime from her birth year to this death is when I should be looking for a death record. Jeremy died after certifying his sister Ruth's age so she could marry in 1821. He obviously was alive in 1821 when he certified her age, so he died after 1821. So we would say after 1821. Simple as that. Which is better than a pure guess, and gives the database something to go on. Estimated second marriage date. This is a funny one. I put this in here because people always get a laugh out of it. Estimated marriage date. If Jasper's wife died in childbirth in 1860, leaving him with 6 little kids at home, and we know that he remarried, about when did he remarry? Just as fast as possible. Somebody had to take care of the babies. So you can assume within 1 or 2 years. So you could say about, add 1 year to her death date and get an approximate marriage date. That's Sarah. Okay. So we'll go back to our PowerPoint. Are you starting to feel a little more comfortable with standardizing? Okay. Same thing happens with a place as with a date. Let's look at some of these examples. We can say that this person, let's say, died in Greenwood, McHenry County, Illinois, United States. That is the perfect way to enter a location according to FamilySearch. Why does it want the country? You ever thought about that? Why does it want the country?
Well, it's looking up something, it needs to know what place it is.
Needs to know what country for, this is a worldwide database. People in Afghanistan who look in this database and are somehow related to this individual might not know where Illinois is unless we tell them United States. I think that's why the database wants us to put that in there. And in fact, whenever it standardizes, it always includes the country. So if we didn't know Greenwood, but we knew the county, we could put in the county, the state, and the country, or we could just put in the state and the country. Did you know that when the database prevents you from reserving a name to do family ordinances, because you don't have a birth date and location, you can estimate both of those, and then FamilySearch will allow you to reserve those ordinances? Sometimes you will put a person in like it's the parents of a daughter who married, for example, and you found their names in a marriage record, and you say, oh, I'd really like to do those ordinances too. And when you go to reserve them, it'll say, needs more information. Well, what it's talking about is birth information. What you need to do is estimate the birth year from the daughter's age, maybe 25 years before, and the location. And the location can be as simple as the country. You could say United States if you aren't comfortable saying possibly. Possibly is a magic word. Possibly and probably are both magic words. You could say possibly Sweden because you know that they came from Sweden. So now we're going to talk about our best guess locations. It's always best to guess at a location, then better to guess at a location than to leave it blank, because it helps us find vital records that improve our knowledge about this family. So what happens when we put in the word probably, Henry County, Illinois, United States, and FamilySearch says no standard selected? Because on that list of ideas it gives me underneath it, it doesn't have the word probably. At the bottom of the list, it always has a notation that says none of the above. If you click on that, it then gives you a second chance to standardize. It says click here to select a place. Click here to select a place. Now it gives us the same list it gave us before. And if we click on the words that are correct, McHenry, Illinois, McHenry, Illinois, FamilySearch will allow us to keep in our cell the word probably, which tells the world, I'm guessing, this is likely but not definite, while FamilySearch is going out and looking for records in McHenry, Illinois. If I hadn't standardized that by clicking here and clicking on McHenry, Illinois, it would not know where to look. So let's see if we can just try it, one of those. I think that would probably be helpful to some of us. Let's go try it. I'm going to come up here and go to, I wonder if she's still alive. No, we got rid of her too. Jason Smith, patients. Here's Fanny. Let's let Fanny be our guinea pig for just a minute here. This actually needs to be standardized anyway. So for the purposes of our example, let's say we don't know that she was born in Rowan County, North Carolina. Let's say instead, possibly, Rowan County, okay? Just for our example, we're going to change it back and make it more definite, but we'll say possibly, Rowan County. And see, it's offering me Rowan, North Carolina, United States. That's how I should have typed it. Rowan, North Carolina, United States. Do I see that on the list? Anybody see the word possibly there? It's not there, is it? It never will be either. It won't have the word probably either. This is how we get to use those words. We come to the very bottom of the list and click on none of the above, which gives us the yellow bar that says click here to select a place. Now, if we see that same list again, and we click on Rowan, North Carolina, which is the part that is correct, it turns green, but did you see that we still got to say possibly? In that two-step process, we get to keep the word possibly, which tells the world, I'm looking for records in Rowan, North Carolina, but I'm not absolutely certain that that's where she was born. That's all we're talking about. Okay, now if I take out, because this lady was actually born in Rowan according to the people who've been working on her file, we'll standardize it the other way. See how much easier it is that way. But it's only one more step to put in the word possibly or probably and add that additional standardization. So let's try that. Possibly. The database is going to try to match it. Possibly is not there. We're going to click on none of the above, which gives us the yellow bar, which tells us we're not ready to proceed yet. We're going to click here. Click here. So that wasn't very hard, was it? It's just a matter of understanding the process. Possibly Rowan is giving FamilySearch a chance to look for records in Rowan without my committing to it definitely being Rowan. That's the third part of your homework assignment if you choose to accept it. I would like you to standardize locations in FamilySearch. Again, this child was born before the father was born. These people have some challenges that they need to resolve. It's very possible that they've got a child added on this family who doesn't belong to the family. It is also possible that, see the difference between 1784 and 1789 and between 1748 and 1756? How many families wait for 8 years to have their second child? Not very many. That often tells us that this first child is connected to the wrong parents. And it would be worthwhile to find out if they have any records attached to Elijah to verify the fact that his parents were in fact James and Clara. Otherwise, it's very possible that his ordinances are being completed, as they have been in this case, and he's been sealed to the wrong parents. And nobody has been smart enough to look for it, which is why the database is now giving us these warning messages. Oh, did you notice? Maybe you should look at this. Because those of us who were just sort of assuming that anybody who was sealed was right needed a little wake-up call. I think we're nearly finished. See what else we've got. We've done, well, we haven't actually done all this, but I'm not going to take you to this. I just wanted to point out that if all I know is Medford, Nova Scotia, I am actually doing some research for Nova Scotia. This is not a made-up example. That FamilySearch will tell me the county in Nova Scotia. That's one of the advantages of standardizing. FamilySearch can provide information you didn't already have, which is often a county. Born somewhere in Pennsylvania, what would I say there? Pennsylvania. Just Pennsylvania. I don't have to be more specific. We're married. If the first child was born in Umatilla County, Oregon, is there a chance they were married there? Is that my best chance that I have so far? Yes. So I might say possibly Umatilla, Oregon. If her next younger and older siblings were born in Jenkins County, Georgia, there is a possibility that she was born there. It's not a definite thing, but we can always say probably Jenkins County, Georgia. It's possible that their family was highly mobile and they had moved to a neighboring community which happened to be outside the county line or something. Where died? If he was 86 years old in the 1940 census and was living in Washoe County, Nevada, it's a very possible, I would say, a likelihood that he died in Washoe County, Nevada. You might not think that about a woman, however, because she could easily have gone to live with one of her children who did not live there. But if her husband died in Washoe County, Nevada, there is a real possibility that she stayed there to be near him until she died as well. Where born? The marriage record says, quote, of Lockhart, Texas. You see that sometimes. You see in the birth section in a woman's page of Lockhart, Texas, or some community. That's coming out of the marriage record. The marriage record says she is of Lockhart, Texas, which means that's where she lives now. That doesn't mean that's where she was born, does it? But we could say possibly Lockhart, Texas, for her birth location. That's the best clue we have. Okay, so what we've covered in this class is simply this. Entering our data and our names, dates, and locations in Family Tree correctly helps us discover people, duplicate people, find vital records, and avoid repeating family ordinances. Richard Allen, the director of this library, tells a story of a time when he found that one of his ancestors had had his family ordinances done 71 times. Multiply that by 5 hours, because that's how long it takes to do one person's ordinances. And you will see why this is important. In the person page, we've learned how to add a person's name at birth in the vital information section, whether it's a male or a female, the name at birth. And we put the alternate names, nicknames, and spelling variations for that person in the other information section, so that FamilySearch can say, if I've got a person someone's entering by this name, and I go to this person page, which says in the other information section that this person was once known by that name, instead of creating them, I should bring them to this page. We've also talked about how to enter and standardize dates, whether we know them to be true or they are estimated, and locations, whether they're real or our best guess dates, locations. Why do we offer best guess locations?
Gives you a clue where to look.
Gives FamilySearch a clue where to look. Good job. And here's our homework assignment. Before beginning Class 4, which doesn't start for a couple of weeks because we want you to be able to relax for Thanksgiving, we want you to edit incorrectly entered names, dates, and places you find in at least 5 person pages in Family Tree. Be sure to standardize the dates and locations. What do we mean by standardize? Wait until the line beneath that information turns green. Okay? And you've got your step-by-step guides now to help you.
When we change those, we don't have to explain why we're changing them.
You do not have to explain why. I do suggest that you consider telling people while you are moving a nickname, because it's a training device for them. It's helping them learn. So many people who are putting information in FamilySearch have never had a chance to take a class like this. And they didn't know that. If you explain it to them and tell them why it's useful to them, because it helps them find duplicate people and helps them find records, they will be more inclined to change their practice. Now in our next class, which is Class 4, we're going to help you take this person page you're creating in FamilySearch and bring it to life by adding a cameo portrait at the top of the person page, a scanned group photograph like this one, and attaching each of these pictures to the person page of the individual it represents, a story, and a life sketch. And we hope that you'll choose to join us. The Taming the FamilySearch Goliath series is intended to help users learn how to use this database with confidence and skill. And we encourage you to download the classes, such as the one we recorded tonight, and all the class handouts from this website. This series of 9 classes is being recorded between November 3rd and January 26th. It's offered by the West Richland Stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mike Goodmanson, who is present with us tonight, is our event coordinator for the series. And we thank the Richland Family History Center in Washington for the generous support they have provided and for the use of their classroom facilities and equipment. Thank you all for your time. We hope you enjoyed the class. Good night.
Thank you, Kara. You're so good at this.
Thank you.
I tried to get on and I was doing something wrong.